I am Zan Holmes. We thank you for joining us today for this virtual In Conversation. Welcome.
My name is Roland Parrish. I'm a McDonald's franchisee here in North Texas, part of a group of dynamic men and women who are great business people. I'm here at Youth World in Oak Cliff for their World Thanksgiving Grocery Drive-Thru event. Today we're going to give out more than 350 turkeys to Dallas area families, and we McDonald's are providing breakfast sandwiches and bottled water for the volunteers. As local business men and women, we McDonald's franchisees are here to support struggling families throughout North Texas. We want everyone to enjoy a Thanksgiving meal without worrying about how to pay for it. And we're happy to partner with Youth World of Dallas today, and they're going to make it happen for more than 1,500 local children. You can join us today in supporting Youth World by going to youthworld.org. From our McDonald's North Texas family to you and yours, we hope everyone has a great holiday.
Welcome to our virtual waiting room powered by Parrish Charitable Foundation and Parrish Restaurants Ltd., established by Roland Parrish, June 19, 1989. Thank you for being our title sponsor.
I'm Demetrius Sampson, and I'm the board chair of the Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center. And in the past, I've done quite a bit of board service that had to do with, say, governmental entities or that sort of service. But this particular service lends itself to a mission and a cause that I think, quite frankly, those two things are underserved. The mission and the cause that the Zan Holmes Center addresses. And so that's what I hope to accomplish by my service on this board. The poverty here is entrenched. It's entrenched in Dallas. And it's probably that way other places as well. But we have such disparity between those who have and those who do not have. The middle class here is shrinking. The people who are doing well are doing very well, and the people who are not doing well are really suffering. And so we have to do something to intervene into that cycle. And it needs to be something that's transformative. That's what we're trying to do. And so we have to do something to provide transportation, to provide access to education, skills. But we have to do it when they can get to it and how they can get to it. And that's part of the reason that we are operating, undertaking the initiative that we call Fraser House. It's like a one-stop shop. You don't need to have to spend half the day on the bus to get someplace to learn. You don't need to have to spend half the day on the bus to get someplace to acquire skills. I think if you have a conscience and you care, you can find a way to be helpful. And I think those particular traits are things that allow me to be helpful. And I'm pretty stubborn, so if we run into an obstacle or challenge, I will go through, under, and above it. But in the end, I intend to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. South Dallas can make it. Sunny South Dallas.
Ladies and gentlemen, ZWHJCOC welcomes you to the 2021 Virtual in Conversation featuring Dale Hansen and Ambassador Ron Kirk. Sit back, enjoy, and be inspired by this thought-provoking conversation. And now, please welcome the visionary and heart and soul of the Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center, board member, Dr. Zan W. Holmes Jr.
Hello, I am Zan Holmes. We thank you for joining us today for this virtual In Conversation. Our purpose is to reach out to the community and to help others reach their God-given potential. And your participation will help us do that. Today, we are grateful to Dale Hansen for being our special guest, and we trust that we will enjoy and be informed by the conversation. Welcome.
Good morning. Giving honor to God, Pastor Emeritus Holmes, Senior Pastor Butler, officers, members, and friends. My name is Alana Jade Parrish, and I'm here today representing the title sponsors, Parish Restaurants Limited and Parish Charitable Foundation. If you've been to this event before and heard me speak, you probably know which verse I'm going to mention next. Luke 12:48 says, "To whom much is given, much is required." This is the spiritual foundation of our business beliefs and practice of giving back to the community. With that said, we are pleased to provide the title sponsorship for the 5th year in a row for this event, which supports the Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center, servicing South Dallas and the Southeastern sector. We know that this event is such a great project for the community, and we congratulate Linda Todd and the event planning committees for having such compelling past guests, such as the Honorable Ron Kirk, Roland S. Martin, the Honorable Mayor of Houston, Sylvester Turner, St. Marshall of the Dallas Mavericks, and most recently, Charlotte Jones of the Dallas Cowboys. We are so excited about this year's guest, longtime sports anchor and award-winning journalist with WFAA-TV, Dale Hansen. As usual, I would like to give a special shout out to the St. Luke family and all of our friends and supporters here. Mr. and Mrs. Cliff and Wanda Johnson, Mr. and Mrs. Stanley and Pat Mays, Miss Helen Giddings, Miss Demetrius Sampson, the Honorable Von Seal Hill, Mrs. Bernice Washington, and of course, Pastor and Mrs. Butler. While this year's event is slightly different as we are meeting virtually, we're still very excited to be a part of this. Like you, I'm looking forward to hearing from WFAA's Dale Hansen and his perspectives on current local, national, and worldwide events. Thank you.
Please welcome our honorary chairs.
Greetings. I'm Richie Butler, the Senior Pastor of the St. Luke Community United Methodist Church.
And I'm Nisha Strambler Butler, and we are thrilled to be the honorary chairs of the 2021 In Conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
In Conversation is the primary fundraising vehicle that helps to support the programs and operations of the Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center, a 501c3 nonprofit. And the conversation hosts a distinguished guest each year who helps to shed light on life and events in our city, state, nation, and even the world.
This year's guest is Dale Hansen, and most of you know him as the WFAA TV sports anchor, but he's also an award-winning journalist and the host of the Dale Hansen Sports Special on Sunday nights. It's one of the highest rated sports shows in the DFW area, so we're really excited about having Dale with us today.
As my wife knows, I watch it every Sunday. And at this time, we would also like to recognize and thank our generous sponsors, beginning with our long-term title sponsor, Roland Parish and Parish Restaurants. Without your support, we would not be able to carry out this important and august mission.
A special thank you to our diamond sponsors. Thank you to our ruby sponsors, our sapphire sponsors, our emerald sponsors, our pearl sponsors, and our topaz sponsors.
And we would be remiss if we didn't take advantage of having you all gathered here today to tell you a little more about the Zan Wesley Holmes Jr. Community Outreach Center. Please watch the following video, and then I invite you to invest and help bring true hope by supporting our mission.
This center is a sincere effort to support and build the community and the people in a caring but firm way. It is about developing and educating the community so the community can continue to grow and build in a positive and progressive way. When communities have been marginalized, oftentimes people are crippled in that respect because they don't have access to the resources that they need. So I think this community deserves the access to resources.
We received Texas Methodist Foundation's Impact Investment for Racial Justice Award. This is fantastic. We are so happy to have TMF partner with us as we move forward as a faith community to help heal the community and build it to make it stronger. Our mission is creating self-sustaining pathways for young people and families living in Dallas. Now, we do that through 3 ways: entrepreneurship, low voltage training, and asset building. Our whole goal is to help others be able to weather the economic storms of life.
This is a hub of hope for people. It's providing a way to educate, a way to give them hope to do and be better.
The building that I have behind me is called Fraser House, and it is a combined effort between DISD and our organization, Zan Wesley Homes Junior Community Outreach Center. And what we do is we come together and we provide a holistic approach to solving and creating sustainable pathways out of poverty. We do our lunch and learns here. We do our boot camps here that we've done for grant writing, social media marketing, how to create a sustainable business entities, and the list continues to go on.
From a community standpoint, I can see where if the exposure of the courses and the services that's provided through the Zan Homes Community Center, if that can be, spread throughout the community, it can't help but to uplift it.
We try to really change the lives of people, and that's what we're about. What I want to thank the Texas Methodist Foundation for is having the foresight to really invest in a community that can thrive.
Wow, the video sums it all up. Your donations are so greatly needed and appreciated. And because of special donors like you, we can continue Dr. Zan Homes' legacy of Christian service and its mission to create self-sustaining pathways out of poverty for young people and families in Dallas through education and job placement. And please visit ZWHJCOC.org to process your tax-deductible contribution.
Thank you again for joining us, and enjoy the 2021
In Conversation.
Thank you for joining us. In the words of David Letterman, my next guest literally needs no introduction. Dale Hansen is the award-winning sports director and anchor of WFAA Channel 8 News, and of late a cult hero for his unvarnished political commentary on matters related to race, gender, and equality.
But most importantly, for purposes of this evening, I am most honored to be able to call him a friend. Dale, welcome to St. Luke, and thank you again for joining us for this In Conversation series that supports our Zan Wesley Holmes Community Outreach Center. You and I have stumbled into this friendship for a number of years.
Yeah, a long time.
But and we've done a lot of these, but this is the first, because usually I'm on the other end of the microphone. So finally I get to flip the odds and be the one asking you the question.
Well, I did find it funny when you contacted me and said we're going to do like an hour together. And I said, you and me together for an hour? I said, oh, so you want to ask two questions?
Matrice's first thought was no.
No. It won't be that hard for you.
It ain't going to be hard. But I got to ask you, and seriously, and this is not one of those tongue-in-cheeks. You know, I was trying to think, other than my friend Clarice Tinsley, we've been on the air longer than any other anchor, media person. I mean, because you've been at Channel 8 38 years.
38 years.
Alone.
And I started at Channel 4 with Clarice, and I keep trying to outlast her, but I don't think I'm going to make it. I mean, why this woman won't give it up, I have no idea.
For the same reason.
She beat me to Channel 4 by just a couple of months. We both came in 1980. I think she was like April, May, June, somewhere in there. And then I came in August. So she's got me by a couple of months, and it's been 40 years, which still I cannot get my head around. 40 years on Dallas television, and loved every day of it. I mean, the day I stepped off the plane, Ron, believe this or not, the day I stepped off the plane and came into downtown Dallas, and quite frankly, downtown Dallas in 1980 was not much in many ways.
No.
And I called my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and I said, do you want to die in Dallas? Because I'm going to. And I just fell in love with the area. I don't know why, but I fell in love with it and decided I'm never going to leave, and obviously I never have.
You know, not many people, forget TV, but not many people do anything for 38 years. What keeps you going?
Well,
and I know you and I talked, because I know a couple of years ago you thought you'd signed your last contract.
I did. That cost me a dinner bet with our mutual friend Judge Moyer, because I was convinced I was done. And he said, there's no way, A, that you're going to leave or they're going to let you leave. And so we put a little dinner bet on it, and I lost. But since I signed the new contract, I could afford it. But it still is an incredible moment when that light goes on. I mean, it just is. But the real reason that I'm still going is because of the social commentaries, because I've been given the freedom to write about something more than ball scores and highlights. I say this somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but if my life consisted solely of ball scores and highlights, I'd have swallowed a bullet years ago and just called it a day. But once I somewhat stumbled in, I've always done commentaries, which people aren't even really aware of, I think, in many ways. Most of the attention came my way when I did the Michael Sam commentary.
Well, but we're going to get to that. Yeah, I want to talk about that.
But I'm saying I've been doing commentaries for a long time.
You have.
But nothing of the caliber of a Michael Sam, and then, quite honestly, the social issues and gun control and everything else. And once I was allowed to have that freedom, that just, it was just a lightning bolt in my body that just invigorated me. I became 27 again and wanted to start all over and keep going. So.
Well, if the roles were reversed and I said I became 27 again, you'd have something witty to say about all that. But thank God you did. But you know, I think they're part of you ascending to that, and you've made fun of it. Now, Eric and I are blessed to know your friends, though it's not the case. Is people thought that was sort of unlikely. Now, I know you play it down, but you are. You grew up in Logan, Iowa, which is how big? I mean,
1,000 maybe.
Waxahachie. I mean, how does a kid from Logan, Iowa, I want to take us on that journey you and I talked about. I know Did you always want to go into broadcasting?
I did. Actually, I wanted to be a disc jockey. I mean, I grew up idolizing Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show, so I was fascinated by that. But knowing in my world that I could never be like a Johnny Carson, I could never be on TV. That was never a goal. But I did think I could be a disc jockey. And I listened to radio differently. I mean, I wasn't like that kid in the basement spinning records, and I didn't do that nonsense. But I listened to the radio differently than everybody else when I was a kid.
Now, what'd you like? What'd you listen to? Country, western,
rock and roll. You know, the Beatles. You know, we didn't have a lot of James Brown and Marvin Gaye, which I gravitated to later.
Are you telling me the Motown Review didn't make it?
Logan, Iowa.
Didn't make it to Logan.
Diana Ross did not come through Logan. She did not do it. And Sam Cooke. You know. I eventually gravitated toward that, but yeah, just your typical Beatles, Rolling Stones, rock and roll music. And I listened to the radio, but I listened to the disc jockeys. So I get out of the Navy, and, you know, my sainted mother said, you know, you need to give that idea up. I mean, kids from Logan, Iowa, population maybe 1,100, 59 kids in my graduating class, which is the largest graduating class they ever had, and we had to consolidate with another school to get to 59. And she said, kids from Logan, Iowa do not end up on the radio. So I bounced around for like 4 years. I was a bill collector. I was a food salesman. I was a bill collector again. I was an employment agency counselor. All of these jobs lasted, you know, 6, 8, 9 months. Got fired. So one night I come home, absolutely true story. It's late at night. I'm watching late night TV, and this ad comes on, and it's for a school in Milwaukee, Wisconsin called Career Academy. And it said, if you sound like this, you can make millions of dollars in the fabulous world of broadcasting. And I'm thinking, I think I sound like that. You know? So I set off to the school. They called me. This is the only time, and I'm serious as I can be about this, this is the only time in my life that I felt what you would call nervous. As you well know, and I think you're in that same category, you could put 10 million people in front of me at a banquet hall or a stadium, give me the microphone, I'm ready to go. I'm sorry, but that's who I am. This guy calls me and he says, go get the newspaper and I want you to read me the top story. My heart's beating like 273 beats a minute. I can't hardly breathe. I can't swallow. Because I think this is it. This is my audition to get into the school, only to find out that the real audition to get into the school is a check for $4,100. You know, you write the check, you're in. But I do it. He goes, oh, you sound fantastic. I start taking home correspondence courses. And I realize this is going to take me forever. I get fired from my last job as a bill collector, and I decide that's it. I take my wife and my 2 little kids, I take them to my parents' house, I drive off to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I go to the school. And on the first floor is like hotel management, second floor was dental hygiene assistants, third floor was a flight attendant school, and the fourth floor was the disc jockeys. And I was going to become a disc jockey, and then I finally do. $94 a week at KCOB in Newton, Iowa. And I was thrilled. I mean, beyond thrilled, because I've been dreaming about this since I was 11 or 12 years old. And about 6 weeks in, I thought, this might be the worst job in America. I mean, this was in the days when you didn't have those big crews around you, you know. It was just me, a soda, and a pack of cigarettes, playing the same songs every day, talking to anybody, maybe. And it just killed me. And about the time I'm thinking, well, now I'm just dead. I mean, I'm just dead. The guy said, I know you're not happy. The news, I never forget his name, Dave Reek. Dave Reek was the news anchor. He just up and quit, took another job. And he goes, I know you're not happy. John Carl was the general manager, the owner of the station. And he said, why don't you do the news? And I thought, yeah, I'll do the news. I mean, but it wasn't like I wanted to do the news. I'll just do the news, because I knew I couldn't spin any more records. And then that proverbial light bulb just went off. And I became a news reporter, slice sports, covering everything. And I never loved anything so much in my life. I was actually in 1974 at a 1,000-watt daytime radio station, and it's on my wall, the Associated Press Investigative Reporter of the Year. And I thought, that's like the biggest thing I'll ever win in my life, and I couldn't believe it. And then I just kind of followed it like everybody does in my business. One job leads to another, and then I get fired again. And I just walk in the door of KMTV in Omaha, Nebraska, just cold, to interview for a job. And the guy had heard about me on Coil, the radio station I worked at. And I know this is a long story, but it's been a long journey. And he looks at me and he goes, "Where'd you go to school?" I said, "Logan, Iowa." And he said, "No, I know, but I mean, where'd you go to college?" I said, "I never went to college." "Well, you can't work here as a news reporter if you never went to college." He said, "You have to have a college degree. I mean, preferably in journalism, but at the very least, you got to have a college degree." So I'm just sitting there trying to pick his brain about what I might do, where I might go. On, again, my sainted mother's grave, the phone rings, and a young man named Dave Weber was the weekend sportscaster, and he quit. Totally shocked Mark Gutierrez, the news director. Mark Gutierrez was so upset, he slams the phone down. He said, "Hey, kid, you like sports?" I said, "I love sports. I'm your guy." Right? He goes, "How would you like to be the weekend sportscaster?" And I went, "Well, I thought you said everybody who works here has to have a college degree." And he goes, "No, not to be a sportscaster. You don't need any education at all. I swear to you." He said, "You don't need any education at all for that job."
All right.
And I auditioned with 10 other guys. I get hired, and here we are.
Now, you talked about getting that on or ZAP radio guy. You moved to Dallas.
Yeah.
You're new. Everybody's sort of enjoying this new guy needling, you know, the Cowboys and them. But your first big story, and I've always wanted to ask you this, and it's hard to come up with stuff with you because everybody knows. But people forget, your first big break was the SMU football scandal.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I remembered that, and that obviously led to the death penalty. Is there any part of you that ever, I mean, given what it did to that program and what it did, how did that shape the way you approached your
it changed
work
everything.
after that?
It changed everything. As you say, you remember it. Quite honestly, a lot of people at SMU still remember it as well. To this day.
Are you saying they've not given you the Man of the Year? You've not gotten.
I have not been nominated for that award.
You've not gotten an honorary degree.
I had a guy. I was over at one of my little favorite places. It was over at Javier's in the cigar bar, and a lot of my stories kind of begin with I was in a bar. But I was confronted. This was about a year ago when we could actually go out in public. But Ira Terrell was there, celebrating, big SMU basketball star. And he had a big group of people there, and he sees me, and he hollers at me to come over. And Ira's been a good friend of mine for a long time. And I'm going around the table, shaking hands with everybody at the table, and I turn to this guy, and he just looked at me and said, "I wouldn't shake your hand." And he's dropping all the curse words after what you did to SMU, and I did my job. I mean, bottom line is, but it changed me completely. And twofold about this is that people forget this, but I was your basic cheerleader sportscaster for the most time. I mean, when I was in Nebraska at that first job in Omaha, I'm having a great time. I'm hollering and screaming, and they beat Oklahoma, and I'm thinking, oh, I get a free trip to Miami for the Orange Bowl. Well, then I come to Dallas, and I'm wearing a cowboy hat, and I'm cheering for the Cowboys, and Drew Pearson and I were great buddies, and Butch Johnson, and I'm thinking, oh, this is fabulous. Then here comes SMU. And as I've said many times, I hate, to this day, I hate the fact that story had to be told because of what it did to SMU and the lives of so many people. And to this very day, I'm still incredibly proud of the fact that I'm the one who did it. We did that story the right way. We took every possible painstaking measure to make sure that we were accurate. In fact, it got pretty frustrating sometimes because we hired a law firm from D.C. just to separate everything. And they would parse every line, every word. And I'm like, you say we, maybe you should say us or I or please, you're killing me. But by the time it hit the air, it was about as good as journalism could be. And I'm incredibly proud of the fact that I was the one who did it. But as a result, that was pretty much the flashpoint for me that my cheerleading days were over. I still love sports. I do like it when the home team wins, but I don't care. I mean, I really don't. The lovely Mrs. Hansen just loves the Dallas Cowboys. I got a little bit of that cheerleading aspect somewhat, with Aikman and Emmett and Irvin and those Cowboys teams of the 90s. But even then, Aikman and I would kind of clash because, he would be so upset after a loss, and I'm kind of like, yeah, it happens. But I got close to Aikman. I love those Jimmy Johnson teams, but I wasn't the cheerleader that a lot of sportscasters are, in my opinion. And it's the same thing with the Mavericks, and Rolando Blackman was one of my favorite guys, and the Rangers and Charlie Huff and Billy Sample and all of these guys that Buddy Bell, the guys that I really enjoyed and have a great deal of respect for. But in 1987, when I saw what was happening at SMU, and I saw, in my opinion, how in so many cases the players were just actually being abused and used for their physical skills, it just kind of brought a jaundiced look to the entire process that I've never recovered from. And at the same time, I think it's the right look. I think it's a healthy look. And while a lot of people don't like it, it changed the way I do sports. It changes the way I talk about sports. But I think somehow, some way, I've managed to survive.
Transitioning from the SMU deal, and you realizing sort of the business point of this, I want to go back to you finding your voice and using that platform to advance issues you care about, basically around equality. And I know a lot of, one, I'm just curious, your reaction to all of a sudden, you got people embracing you. Now Del Hansen is woke. Del Hansen's being honored by the Human Rights Campaign for speaking out on Michael Sam, and
Dallas
obviously
Justice,
you spoke up for the Colin Kaepernick. But where did that come from? And I know you and I have talked, that you have a black granddaughter whom you adore. Did that factor into this sort of journey?
It all, you mentioned, and we've talked about this, that there's not a whole lot new for you to ask me about. But I'm going to give you something new. I've told a couple of people know this story. I don't think you're one of them. When I was 17 years old, in Frank Weiland's speech class, which was about far and away my favorite class, because Mr. Weiland knew that I wanted to get into broadcasting, and he spent a great deal of time helping me in developing my voice, if you will. And I was like a B-, C+ kind of a student. I could have been better, but I just wanted to stay eligible to play basketball or something. And then I got like A's in Mr. Weiland's speech class, including for a speech that I wrote in 1966. Let's face the facts. Negroes are just plain troublemakers. And everybody in my class, the theory was, to write about social issues and the like. People, my friends would get up in class, they'd drop the N-word, in the middle of their speeches. That was fine. My high school football coach used the N-word a lot. I never did. Negroes. But my argument was, James Meredith, causes all this trouble. Go find another school. Go find another school. Why do you want to eat at Walgreens? I mean, the food's not even that good at Walgreens. Go find another restaurant. Because I'm a 17-year-old ignorant, not stupid, not racist, ignorant kid that was taught that from the day I came out of the womb. And I believed it for 17 years of my life. And I'll never forget. I finished this speech, and I'm sorry, but it was pretty good. It was an ignorant speech. It was a stupid speech, but it was well laid out. And as I sit down, Mr. Weiland says, and even using language that I can't use here, Mr. Hansen, that might have been the biggest pile of I've ever heard. And I'm giving you an A- because the argument is horrible. And I just hope that someday you learn better. All my buddies who thought they might have been liberals or thought that they were on the right side of justice would go off to the Army and the Navy. They would come back, and I swear to you this is true. They say, boy, you're right. Oh, my gosh. Because we had one black family in the entire county, not just Logan, Iowa. We had one black family, the Matthews family, in the entire county. They would come back from boot camp and they go, oh, man, I got around all these black kids. And of course, that wasn't what they would. I got around, they're horrible, horrible. I went to the Navy at 17 thinking, yeah, okay, this isn't going to be. Really? And as I somewhat jokingly said earlier, my stories begin in a bar. I'm now 18 years old. I'm in Patuxent River, Maryland. And there's 6 of us piled into a booth. And maybe some of your viewers tonight are old enough to remember, but we had the jukebox, where you put in like a dime and you flip the pages, you play with it. So we're playing the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Elvis music and whatever. And we're drinking because the drinking age was 18, and we're flirting with the waitress, and we're singing to the songs, and we're obnoxious, and we're just crazy. And all of a sudden, these 6 black kids come walking in on the other side of the bar, and they sit down, and they're playing their music, and this buddy of mine looks at me and he says, would you look at those guys? And again, the language a little more coarse. And I swear to you, I kind of went, what are you talking about? He goes, look at those guys. They're loud, they're singing, they're slamming their beers over there, they're flirting with the waitress. I mean, they're just obnoxious. And I looked at him and I said, you mean like us? And I got up, and I'm not saying that alcohol wasn't involved, but I got up and I walked across the room, and this is not like walking across a bridge in Selma, but it's a walk. And I said, do you mind if I join you? And these guys look up, and they're kind of like, honky, what do you want to join us for, or whatever? And I said, well, I'd like to join you because I like Sam Cooke and Marvin Gaye and James Brown and Jackie Wilson better than that nonsense I'm listening to over there. Well, sit down, buddy. And my whole life changed. I was known in the Navy when I eventually went on a ship. I was the guy that ran with all the black guys. I get married. To my high school sweetheart. We came back off this cruise. So I got 6 of my black friends coming over to my apartment. We're cooking the hot dogs and drinking all the beer they had in Patuxent River, Maryland. I pile them all back into my car, and I take them back to the ship. And I come back, and my wife, my ex-wife, had thrown out all the plates, glasses, and silverware. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she said, well, you don't expect me to eat off that again, do you? And I'm like, well, it's not like I can afford to buy another plate. I mean, and I just looked at her and I said, well, I really don't think this is going to work. And our marriage basically ended on that night. We stayed together for, I don't know, a couple of years after that before we finally broke up. When my granddaughter was born, my ex-wife actually said, do not bring that little up here to see me. My mom said, which is the most amazing thing, this sainted woman who went to church like 3 times a week, as my dad said, the rest of us never had to go to church because mom went enough for the entire family, which was somewhat true. My mom didn't use any vile language, but she said, I just don't think you want to bring that little girl up here, Dale. It wouldn't be right. I mean, it just wouldn't. And my dad, who, as I've said publicly, my dad who used the N-word like it was a proper noun, and basically kind of convinced me that Henry Aaron and Willie Mays and Bill Russell and Jim Brown and others were not worthy of the respect that they were entitled to. He grabbed the phone and he said, you get that little girl up here now. We go up to visit him. He takes Mackenzie, goes down to the local bar, because a lot of my dad's stories started at a bar too. And my dad was a big man, like 6'4", 285, with a flat belly, truck driver, biceps. Oh man, he's the strongest man I've ever known in my life. And he just walked into the bar, just kind of looked around and said, I'm sorry, did somebody want to say something to me? Because nobody's going to say anything to Murph Hansen. It's not going to happen. And he punked little Mackenzie up on that stool. And then my mom kind of chilled out eventually. But that's how I was raised. And that's why I get into so many arguments with friends of mine about the Thomas Jeffersons of the world, the George Washingtons of the world, the Abraham Lincolns, whatever, FDR and everything. Yes, they did a lot of horrific things. But at some point, I think we need to tap the brakes just a little bit and go, but that's all they knew. That's what they were taught. And I understand, as people will say, well, they should have known better. I mean, again, of course they should have known better. But in the words of the great Chris Rock, I certainly don't agree or condone it, but I understand. And that's what I am. I'm sitting there going, I don't want people, I used to jokingly say, people say, why don't you run for public office? I said, somebody's going to find that speech I wrote when I was 17 years old. And now I've just thrown it out there for you. But I tried to share that story with you to tell you that, when all you're taught, and this is what I've always believed, kids aren't born to hate, they're taught to hate. Kids aren't born, with, well, you're a different color than me, you're black, brown, No, you look at a 4-year-old in the playground and all they're arguing about is, hey, give me my ball back. But when they're 16 years old, no, I'm not dating her, I can't hang out with her, because they're taught that. And now we have to teach them again the other way. I just got lucky. I just happened to be in the right bar at the right time. And my life went down that path, and I've never looked back. And
we're glad you did, and you've certainly used that platform.
Well, I think I have to. And Mackenzie, as you said, Mackenzie is one of the driving forces behind it, without question. Is that she'll call me and she's like, Papa, I'm so proud of you, Papa. Oh, Papa. And I'm like, baby, I'm doing it for you. She goes, oh, good, Papa, that's good.
All right, I got to get a couple of more questions before we go.
I warned you about this.
Well, and I know, but the thing that I loved about Mackenzie and what I missed, you do, well, we know it, those of us that have been privileged to call you friends, but then you explode on the national scene, particularly after the Michael Sam commentary.
Yeah.
And then you get to go on Ellen, and then you take on, not just Trump, but you get in, you speak out on the issue of kneeling in the flag. And for all of that, I think, and I know I and Eric and others are proud, 2019, 2017, you are given the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Radio, Television, Digital News Association. Big deal.
Well,
and you call and you did hurt my feelings a little bit. You asked Derek to introduce you, and you called me because you wanted to go see. But you got to tell this story because I love it. So you go to Washington for this big black tie award.
Yeah.
We call and you get to meet. You go and spend,
thanks to you. Thanks to you.
You get to go spend 45 minutes with President Obama. You and Chris.
The thing I always tell people about this is that you ever have somebody tell you about, well, there's this great movie, you got to go see it. It's just the most amazing movie ever. And then you get there, it's good, but it's just not quite the movie you hoped that it would be. Oh, there's this great new band. Oh, you got to hear this band, the most amazing band ever. Or this comedian. This is one of maybe twice in my life that I had an expectation of what I hoped meeting Mr. Obama would be. I had an expectation of what I thought it would feel like and what he would be when I met him. And I did say to Chris on the way over there, what if he's just a jerk? What if, because I idolize the man. I don't apologize for that. I just idolize the man. And I thought, what if he just blows us off? Because of course he could. He's Barack Obama, for goodness sakes. And what if he's just kind of a jerk? And she goes, well, he's not going to be that. I said, well, what if he is? He walks in, and I can't do the voice as well as many people do, but I don't know if you remember this or not, but you or I are in that little foyer area of his office. He goes, well, I guess everybody from Texas is here today. Everybody from Texas is here. Whoa, I got this lump coming up. He walks up, how you doing? How you doing? And I mean, he said, well, let's sit down. And we sit down and talk. And you remember the one? I asked him my favorite question about, do you ever just lie in bed at night staring at the ceiling, realizing that if there is indeed an America 100 years from today, kids will be learning about President Barack Obama. And I mean, that to me is that's just overwhelming to me to think that 100, 200 years from today. And he starts in, he said, no, I'm just a guy. I said, I'm not so humble to deny, my role. But he said, I'm still best friends with the kid I went to high school with, and the plant manager and whatever. Boys, and you remember, the lovely Mrs. Hansen puts her arm around and says, hey, you really are just a guy.
Well, we got that.
Well, now you're going to get shot. You know what I mean? But what I've told everybody when I came back from that award is far and away personally the most significant achievement of my life or recognition of my life or whatever. But that whole day, that whole weekend, because for one of the very few times in my life, maybe two, and I actually can't think of what the other one might be, it exceeded everything that I hoped it would be. And if you remember at the end, he said, now listen, now tonight, when you're giving that speech, a little choke in the throat's good. No crying. Oh, you can't be crying. A little choke in the throat. And I swear to you, that night, I'm giving the speech. And I started to get a little emotional. And I swear to you, the only thing that really saved me was in the back of my head, all I hear is, little choke in the throat's okay. Little choke's okay. No crying on the stage. But I get that award. I mean, I'll never get over this. I get the call that I'm receiving this National Lifetime Achievement Award. And the previous winners, Andy Rooney, Bob Simon, Bill Plant, Nita Totinger from PBS covers the Supreme Court, Tom Brokaw, Robin Roberts, and me.
It's pretty good company.
And I'm sitting there, I feel like the dog at the poker table, They're all gathered around, and then there's this dog sitting over in the corner holding his cards, and somebody's going, who is that? And how did he get into our picture? It was the most overwhelming thing of my life. And as I said that night, I believe it or not, I don't think that I am worthy of that. I really don't. But I'm incredibly flattered and honored that somebody thinks I am.
My friend, you were more than worthy. Look, this has been a little heavy, but look, we'll do it. But I always like to wrap these things up with a little bit of what I call a lightning round. So for you and I, we're going to try to go quick. And these ought to be fun, just for curiosity. I know you're not a homer. So for that reason, if you could be the commissioner of any of the sports leagues, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, if you could be commissioner.
Soccer?
Of any.
Hey, we're friends. You know I don't care about soccer.
All right, but if you could be commissioner of any sports league, what would it be?
Well, that's kind of a two-pronged question, but I tell you, in many ways, I'd like to be the commissioner of baseball. Depending on the level of the job, because I love baseball, and I think baseball has been destroyed over the last 25, 30 some years. Baseball was far and away my favorite sport as a kid growing up. money-wise, recognition-wise, obviously I want to be the commissioner of the NFL because that's the most powerful job going. But I wish somebody would step in and figure out a way to clean up Major League Baseball and return it to the greatness that it was when Mickey Mantle and Bob Gibson and Sandy Koufax and Willie Mays and Henry Aaron were playing the game. And I think that genie is out of the bottle. But I just wish that somebody would sit down and say, hey, we need to fix this for the betterment of the industry and the fans and the players themselves.
I mean, not make it so. I'm not a baseball guy. All right, I'm gonna keep you going.
Yeah. Okay. But I want to fix baseball.
I was going to say, not so much best interview that surprised you the most.
Ooh, well, probably the all-encompassing interview was the Barry Switzer interview in 1994.
Yeah.
When I'm in Austin, because I didn't expect it. He starts punching me in the arm. He starts calling me a liar. But that interview encompasses so many different levels. Is it? One, because I got into this basically a shouting match, which kind of bothers me that I lost my cool a little bit, but I was in his face. I mean, it sent that signal. Yeah, you can't intimidate me, which I was kind of proud of that fact. As Joe Brodsky, the Cowboys running backs coach, he was punching me in the arm not to hurt me. He was punching me in the arm, which to kind of demean me. But Joe Brodsky, the running backs coach, called me and said, yeah, but that one shot kind of hurt, didn't it? I said, it hurt like a son of a gun, right?
Well, it may be that interview could be the answer to both questions. Because the other hand was going to be, what was the worst?
Yeah, well, and again, it was the best and the worst of it. In many ways, the worst, I mean, I think without question was the worst interview that I've ever been involved in for all of those reasons. But, the SMU interview when I'm sitting across from Bobby Collins and Bob Hitch is the one that, because there again, I think for the most part, I wasn't Mike Wallace, but I did my job. I asked the questions. I spelled out the argument. I didn't allow them to intimidate me. And it's kind of the same thing with the Barry Switzer interview. It was a horrible interview on so many levels, but it
was good.
Did bring some eyeballs to the TV.
And you held your own. Yeah. Dale, look, we are serious. I know you've been exceptionally kind to me through your career, but what I've admired about you is that fidelity to journalism. We tend to not always see sportscasters in the same realm as Carton Cutting, but what you've done through your work is, and your stands for social justice, for equality, for people of color, for the LGBT community, but just for doing what's right is what makes so many of us admire you. And what you've done for kids in the Metroplex all these years through your charity golf tournaments, for Thank God for Kids, your scholar athletes is admired and respected. And what you're doing today, particularly to help us, and those that are served by the Zan Wesley Holmes Community Outreach Center is deeply appreciated. So on behalf of our whole family at St. Luke, I thank you, my friend. We wish you well. And for those of you listening, watching, thanks for being with us. And this is my friend, Dale Hansen.
Thank you again to our 2021 In Conversation honorary chairs, and thank you for your donations and support of ZWHJCOC's mission. What an amazing and thought-provoking conversation. Thank you to Ambassador Ron Kirk and our distinguished guest, Dale Hansen, for your keen insight. Thank you all for joining us. There's still time to make your tax-deductible contribution at ZWHJCOC.org. See you at the next In Conversation.